Hey there, welcome to Board Game Hot Takes, the podcast where we give our immediate reactions to the hottest board games just minutes after playing them. My name's Tim.
And this is Chris.
This is Adam.
And today, instead of giving a hot take review on a game we just finished playing, we're going to continue our countdown of the best games of all time according to us. This week, we're going to be covering number 11 through 20. And if you'd like to check out the rest of our list, the last 2 weeks we've done numbers 21 through 40, and we'll be finishing up next week with our top 10. But let's forget about next week and focus on the present. There's no time like the present. Before we jump into our discussion on our top games of all time, I have some poll results to discuss. This week on social media, I asked the question, how important is balance to you in a board game? Every week I ask a question on social media, and we love to read the results on our show and also like to get your comments as well. So here's the options I gave this week for this question, though. How important is balance to you? Very important was 36.4%. Kind of important was 52.4%. Not much was 10.2%. And not at all was 0.9%. How'd you guys answer this?
I put kinda important. I think you spell like a Kinda, kinda important for balance. If a game is too balanced, it can feel like no matter what you do, it doesn't matter. Everybody ends up between 80 and 90 points after 10 rounds of play. Then did anything you did that whole game matter at all? I don't know. And some games, I like it when you can exploit little loopholes in games or some incredible combos in games. You can dig those out and have this amazing combo and make it work. So maybe some people consider that unbalanced. I think it's just kind of clever finding these different little paths to score some victory points or whatever you're trying to do. And if a game is unbalanced, like super unbalanced, then again, the same, like the opposite is true. Like sometimes I feel like I have no agency because maybe I got the short end of the stick and somebody got the 8 magic combos that's going to give them 900 points and I ended up with 150 points. So that doesn't feel good either. Somewhere between that super swingy 75 to 78 to 79 points, I don't want that. And I don't want 100 points to 1,000 points either. So somewhere in between there. So it's kind of important.
I am also in team kinda. I think that it's not incredibly important to have a lot of balance, but I also think it's not irrelevant. But there's also different kinds of balance, too, that I want to talk about for a second. And for example, what I mean by that is there's the kind of balance that I think we just talked about in a recent episode, Tapestry. Tim had mentioned how there's a lot of complaints about Tapestry being an unbalanced game. And I think a lot of that has to do with the benefits that come from Tapestry cards. That's luck. That's a luck type of balance. And a luck type of balance, I mean, when you're going to have luck, there's going to be an imbalance of some sort potentially, and there's nothing you can do about that. But then another kind of imbalance is the kind of imbalance that comes from the runaway winner, where as you get progressed in your power, then you're going to have the ability to steamroll your opponents. And that kind of balance, I think, is a little bit more important. I find it frustrating when I'm in the middle of a game and I just feel like there's nothing I can do, that we got a runaway winner and I'm just stuck behind. And there is absolutely why am I playing this game anymore? Some games through the ages actually let you bail on the game and give up when that happens as part of the rules. And then another kind of imbalance is the kind of imbalance that comes from asymmetric powers. And I actually think that can be a lot of fun because sometimes you've got a faction that's more challenging to play, but that gives you the opportunity to kind of really dig in to try some interesting strategies. And I think of that more as playing the advanced version, kind of an imbalance. And I think that can actually be a lot of fun. And it's also an opportunity to show off a little bit. If you're playing your friends and you're like, okay, I'll play the really hard faction and I can still win. That can be fun.
Yeah, you guys said a lot of what I had to say here, so I won't speak too long on it. I think playing to show off that you're stronger is one thing, but I also think that having some imbalance, if you know about it, can be beneficial to help when you're playing with new players. Like it is good to take the harder faction when you know because it's good to handicap yourself a little bit. So, but is that fun when you're playing with a group of players that all want to sit down and play competitively? Not so much. And I'm actually going to be talking about some games on my list this week as well as next week that I think have some complaints about balance, whether it's from me or somebody else. And I think asymmetric factions that are drastically imbalanced are a struggle. And there's ways to fix that, but usually it makes it a little bit less fun. I'm thinking of games like Scythe is well known for this. Wonderland's War is well known for this. And then some that do it pretty reasonably, like Anachrony doesn't feel too unbalanced, although some of them I think are a little more challenging to play. Root, I think, is known, even though it's a very popular asymmetric game, but isn't it if like you play with the Vagabond, unless people go after you, you're going to win? And then there's that element in some asymmetric games where if everyone knows that there's a balance difference, then as long as that person is, kind of targeted, if the players play against that, then that's okay. I remember Chaos in the Old World is that Eric Lang design where one of the characters was specifically apparently designed to be imbalanced, that the red character that is supposed to be more powerful. So other people have to stop them. They have to pick on them. That's not fun for me, but that's an interesting design choice. And then Chris, you were talking about Tapestry, and I think other games that also just lead to luck-based balance issues. And Tapestry is a great example. Arc Nova is a great example. Terraforming Mars, it even can happen. And sometimes you're just going to luck into some of the combos that are fun to put together. But that stuff doesn't really bother me at all. I like that some of the games balance them. They find a way to try to balance them. Like even if it's a more powerful card, you have a higher cost with it or something like that. But that sometimes you're going to play a game of Arc Nova and just get the right hand that puts together. And it's fun to do that, but it's not necessarily balanced to do that. So that doesn't bother me so much. Asymmetric powers that are drastically imbalanced, I think, can be a problem. Luckily, sometimes they're solved for. But yeah, generally, I said kind of important. I think balance is valuable to consider, but not a game breaker. I don't want to play chess. I don't want to play where two sides who play the exact same game. It's going to come down to who went first to win. So I think a little bit of imbalance is fine, especially when it just comes to finding the fun parts and putting them together in the right way. All right, well, here's what some people said on our Twitter and Facebook posts. Marco said, as Thanos says, perfectly balanced as all things should be. This is my ideal game. No luck, no dice, possibly 100% deterministic. Wow, Marco, Euro fan there through and through. I like a little bit more luck in my Euros, but fair enough. Dr. Wicks said, balance does not have to be equal among all players, but all players should have engaging paths with a reasonable chance of victory. I think that's a great call out, especially since Dr. Wicks designed one of Adam's games on his list last week, Robotech Reconstruction, which is an asymmetric game. I think they did a pretty good job of finding asymmetry, a nice balance, the way the players interact to control that a little bit. Blake Whitaker said, I don't want perfect balance in a game. Scythe, for example, has notably more challenging factions. Since I'm more experienced than some of my friends, I use them and give them the easier ones. It allows you to tailor the balance yourself by giving handicaps. We talked about that a little bit. Interestingly enough, almost everybody that commented on our Facebook post had something to say about Scythe, either that they wouldn't play it because it was imbalanced, or that they liked it just like Blake did and like that we talked about it. So interesting perspectives on the balance there. And then Seth said, balance is very important on game night. Chips, pretzels, and cookies evenly distributed around the table with beer and meat. It's hard to accomplish, but it's a struggle that I believe in. And Seth, you're right. You're really focused on the top balance priorities. Let's jump over to our top 11 to 20 games of all time. And like we've done the last couple of weeks, try to call out something that you think is your favorite part about each of these games that you talk about.
My number 20 game is a game that, is imbalanced. This one favors those who enjoy arithmetic or are good at it. This is Capital Lux 2 Generations.
Wow.
Oh,
that is a bold number 20.
This is a fantastic game. You guys need to play. You guys need to get into this game more. It is absolutely fantastic. The card play here is extraordinarily clever. And this is just with, I think it's the B set of tiles, the same set that was with Capital Lux OG. But here in Capital Lux 2, you have A through E sets of suited powers. So what you're doing, you're playing either card to the capital city or to your own little city. And there's 4 district 4 suits, basically. And you want to make sure that the capital suit has a higher number than your own city's suit. And so you're manipulating the cards. Some of these cards, you play the pink suit up there. It lets you take the minimum card from the capital and put it in your city. And that's just one example. There's also the blue suit. You can get a plus or minus, gives you a little random token, and you get to place that out on the capital to kind of adjust its total at the end of the round. The green suit lets you pick another. Anyway, there's all these different little clever things that you can use smartly. There's now an app for this. So I've been honing my skills. Chris, you need to get on this thing. We can play each other all the time. If you want 24/7, let's do it. You're smirking at me. I absolutely love this game. Extraordinarily clever card game. Capital Lux 2 Generations. You guys are weirdos for not liking this one.
Oh man. So that's how we're going to start tonight. Hey, Adam, you're going to We're walking down a dark path already.
What do you got, Chris? What's your number 20?
Well, I see your Capital Lux 2 Electric Boogaloo, and I raise you one Viticulture Essential Edition designed by Jamie Stegmaier and Alan Stone and published by Stonemaier Games. But before I get into a discussion of the game, I want to talk a little bit about my list and how this week's list compares to the other week's lists. Last week, I talked a little bit about how the previous 2 weeks had compared. And so there was a bunch of new kind of interesting stuff happening in the 31 through 40 zone. And then in the 21 through 30 zone, that was the transition zone. That was a place where there was some new people coming in, some new games, but there was also some previously higher ranked games that had dropped kind of significantly. So there was a real mixed bag there. So my 11 through 20 zone is actually the one that was the most like the previous year. There are a couple new games in there, but there's a bunch of games that were actually in pretty similar placement last year. So just a little spoiler alert that's kind of where I'm going tonight. And one of them is Viticulture Essential Edition, which was number 24 last year. It is number 20 this year, so it actually moved up just a little bit. This is a game that I just really dig. It just has this good, warm feeling in my stomach, like a lot of Jamie Stegmaier's games do. I'm a big Jamie Stegmaier fan, and I like a lot of the stuff he designs. And Viticulture is a game that I've just always appreciated for its strong thematic ties, and also surprising me, this is one of the first games that I played that was of such a theme that I never would have imagined would be fun in a board game, but it's making wine. I mean, how fun could that be, right? But that said, when I sat down to play it, my favorite thing about it, actually, this is my favorite thing about the game, is the first time I sat down to play it, there's something about this game that is so intuitive, that just makes so much intuitive sense to me, that I feel like it's a quick, easy learn for what is a very deep, satisfying game. I've taught it to a couple of non-gamers a couple of different times, and everybody seems to get into this game pretty quickly, which is a lot to say for a game that's rated as almost a 3 on BGG. It is not a light game. It's got a lot of stuff happening and a lot of deep, interesting decisions to be made, but at the same time, you can sit down and you can teach it pretty easily and get into a game. And I think that is a really sweet spot to have in a game of this weight.
You say weighted, or you said weighted almost a 3, not rated almost a 3. Is that right?
Weighted.
Okay.
Yeah, it's weighted a 2.89 in BGG, on BGG.
Great pick, Chris. Viticulture, it was on my list last week or the week before, I don't remember now, but fairly recently, and I think I love it, and I still think you got to try Tuscany. I think you're going to like it even more. Makes it even more interesting and fun. Yeah, it was my number 33, it looks like.
Definitely want to try Tuscany. I heard what you said about it, and I have never stopped wanting to try that, just haven't gotten around to actually getting it yet.
Cool. Well, my number 20 is a game that the three of us have played a lot. That is Beyond the Sun. We reviewed this game probably a year and a half ago. We've played it a decent amount on Board Game Arena since. I have a copy and I've had taught it to a couple newer players, a couple of groups around here, and always have fun with Beyond the Sun. Chris is going to say something about how the starting moves always feel redundant. You're doing the same thing, but I don't actually think that's true, because depending on what the other players pick and depending on what the other technologies are that are available to choose at that point, you may or may not always pick the same one. Yeah, it's going to be one of the first 4, but I think from there is where it really gets exciting, as you start to flip over those cards and you got just the right about a motivation to go and explore a card that you haven't seen yet, because you're going to get a little extra bonus for it. Then it's going to open up the world for other people to find new abilities, new worker placement spaces to go to. I think Beyond the Sun's fantastic, and there is a new expansion for it. It's top of my wish list right now. It does have a solo mode, but what I'm actually more excited about is it starts with some asymmetric player powers. And the way I understand it works is it's kind of like a deck of cards. And so everyone's dealt out a couple cards and you keep 2 that are going to give you some unique abilities, some unique things. And I love that kind of variety in asymmetry. So it's not just about, one player power versus another. I feel like this is going to be a little bit more like Age of Galaxy type of, asymmetry, where you've got a couple cards that are going to do something pretty unique and fun every time. So really excited to play that expansion. But even without it, I love this game. I think it's fantastic. Love getting that big old tech tree board out on the table, even if it's kind of minimalist. It's just fun to start flipping over those cards and seeing what's coming up.
I just feel like I got to say this because you also alluded to it already, but this is a game that suffers tremendously from a lack of depth in content. It's a good game. It's well designed and it's got fun things happening. But what you said is right. I am so bored of that first few moves. And even the second row of technologies, I feel like there's just not enough in the base box. I feel like I see the same technologies every time. I'm like, oh, where's that one going to pop up this time? Oh, there it is. And so it's a good game that at this point has me bored to tears because I keep seeing the same stuff happening over and over and over again. I'd love to try it with the expansion because I think if you add more content to this game, it's got to help it. And like I said, it's got good bones. I just wish it had more meat on the bones.
Yeah, I can hear your complaint. I understand that, Chris. But moving on to my number 19, also taking place in outer space. This is relatively and very recently new to me. This is Abducktion. This game is just goofy, silly, fun, but also there's some great strategy here. You might not think it because it's these cute little rubber ducky looking things, but they're actually acrylic little duckies that live in this UFO. You're an intern for this research company conducting these experiments, very humane experiments on these ducks. You're just trying to get them into different formations, which you have on these 10 quantum ponds. It's 5 on the top and 5 on the bottom, and they move in a row from left to right on the top, around the corner, and then right to left on the bottom, and they kind of cycle through. And it's almost like one of these, I don't know, like that Jewel Blast game or whatever that game is called, where you get this formation, you match it, you take them off, and all the other ducks slide down into place. So there's a bit of, I can make this formation now, and I can grab these ducks off, and that'll leave these 4 ducks together, which will help me get this formation that's available next turn. And you have these 3 cards that help you manipulate the ducks, not only on your board, but you can also manipulate the ducks on other people's quantum ponds. So if you see they're about to get some huge scoring formation, you can zap all their ducks back into the UFO to a safe spot in the UFO and prevent them from getting this high scoring formation. So there's a little bit, and it's nothing too aggressive. It's just a little bit of, a slight little assails on your opponents here, the right kind of interaction for me. The game is cute. The production is outstanding. Sarah introduced this one to me, and it's been a blast. That's Abducktion.
It's funny, when I posted our number 31 through 40 episode a couple weeks ago on our Facebook group, and I asked the question, hey, so whose opinions do you agree with the most at this point in the list? And there's many, many comments that said, usually I would agree with Tim or Chris more, but Adam's just killing it with all the Euro picks he's got on his list. And I can see how that's going to go this week. We're clearly not in the Euro. Adam's not in Euro world on this week's list.
Dude, you got to find the unique games. You got to put the unique games in the higher ranks, man. These games there's nothing like Abducktion. What other game is like this? There's no other game out there that exists like this. It's so much fun.
Well, I feel like I've been a total hater so far. I don't want to do that. So I got to say, Abducktion, I want to try this. It looks super fun. I'm down with it, Adam. Bring it to Portland. I'd love to play it.
Great.
Yeah, it does actually sound really fun. I'm surprised, but excited to give it a shot.
I brought this to a local meetup, and that's all people wanted to play. It was Abducktion. So we started off, there was like 4 of us. There's somebody else showed up late. He's like, does it take 5? I want to play. So he jumped in. We had added the other ducks to, we went 5 players.
Nice.
And then it was full. There was 2 other people that wanted to play. So I jumped out and taught some people another great game I'll talk about soon. And 6 other people just started playing Abducktion, and I just went and played some other game and let them just run it and they had a blast.
Excellent. Well, my number 19 game is one that may come as a surprise, particularly to Tim, I think, but it's Agricola.
Nice.
Oh, no.
By Uwe Rosenberg and published by Lookout Games. It's another one of these games that have been popping up more and more frequently in my life recently that I don't think I'm going to like, that I think are just going to be too dry, too Euro-y, and end up being a lot of fun. And so Tim got us into this one, or got me into this one. You guys did an episode on it. I wasn't available for that one, but I played a game with him afterwards and really liked it. I'm really bad at it. I haven't actually won a game of it yet, but I really do enjoy this game. And there's something magical about Uwe Rosenberg, because it's the same thing with A Feast for Odin. I never thought that I would like that either, but I really do like A Feast for Odin. So I'm not sure what the alchemy is there. But in this one, similar to Viticulture, and maybe there's a theme developing, it is a highly thematic Euro game. It's a dry-ish theme, but it's integrated really well. The way in which the things that are happening on your farm, certain things happen. You have to make this thing happen to make this other thing happen in your farm. You have to have a certain type of house before you can upgrade it, and you have to have the right materials and all these things. I find it very engaging. And I think what I'd have to say is my favorite thing about the game is it's that integration. It's the theme integration, similar to what I said about Viticulture, that it's a Euro. It feels very Euro-y, but at the same time, I also feel like I'm really immersed in the world, as sort of dry and medieval as it might be.
I love this pick, Chris, and I totally agree with you. I think that worker placement should feel thematic. I mean, it's a perfect situation. You're sending out a worker to do something, and Agricola plays it off perfectly, even to the fact where you just have a couple that's struggling and taking a couple spots until you have kids, and then you can take more actions.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I was thinking of Darwin's Journey, and I don't think we brought this up in the review, but that's a worker placement game with no thematic tie into why you're putting people on a board to take actions, right? I mean, there's other thematic ties in that game, but that part of it they completely missed on. But Agricola gets it perfect, and I don't think a single other worker placement game does it quite as well as Agricola does. Great pick. My number 19 is La Granja. This is a game that we've played a ton on Board Game Arena. I have the new deluxe master set coming from Board and Dice. The Kickstarter I backed right after we reviewed this game, like literally reviewed it, and I think I pushed the back button the minute after we covered it on the show. And I'm so excited to get that. I think this game belongs a little bit higher, but it does have a really, really ugly color palette, a pretty poor production. I'm still enjoying it a lot after playing it dozens of times over the last couple of years. And when we get this new updated production, can't wait to see if that elevates it for me or if it stays the same. But I love La Granja. I think it's a great game. Multi-use cards, a little bit of area control, a little bit of dice, dice drafting, and that all works together in these fun little, sections of game, these little mini games that are happening. That I just love it. It's fantastic Euro game. Can't wait to play it more.
I can't argue with that one, Tim. This is a game I thought I was just gonna not enjoy at all. Like some of these ones, you bring these Euro games, and I'm just like, mechanisms. But this one was just cool. The dice drafting is epic. The little market area control where you bump the guy's market out of business, that's pretty fun too. And then the multi-use cards are insane here. Just 4 choices per card. What are you going to use it for? Oh, it like wrecks my brain. What a fun game. Great pick.
Great pick. The only thing I don't like about La Granja is the fact that every doggone time we play, Adam gets that card. The peddler. Bump his guy, then he just gets to move.
Every time.
I hate that card.
That card's pretty good. Also, Tim, I'm still trying to find this tweet where people agreed with me on any portion of my list. It's insane. That never happens. I need an ego boost. I'm going to look for that.
It's funny. Facebook group. If I had a couple.
Oh, Facebook group. Okay. That's why. My number 18 game is a pseudo trick taker. This one is Shamans. I bought it on a somewhat of a whim after seeing the production, and it looked beautiful, and I like these kind of trick-taking, clever little card games. Brought this one first to Palm Springs where we played it, and everyone was kind of suspect of it. Me too. I was like, what is this game? I don't know, shadows and shamans, what's going on here? But it's so fun. So there's like 2 teams, basically the shadows and the shamans, and the shadows are trying to get the moon to the eclipse, and the shamans are trying to prevent that, and they're trying to avoid the eclipse and try to out the shadow or shadows by murdering them with daggers, I guess. That gets a little violent pretty quick, but that's what happens. And you do it in this sort of a card play. Do you want to follow the lead suit or not? If you don't follow the lead, the little marker marches down towards the eclipse. And if you do follow lead, it doesn't do that. And you get to activate these certain columns based on which card was highest and lowest and who played what. And then you draw a token. And then if you fill out the suit for that column, this doesn't make any sense. But then you're the one who gets to do the ritual of that column or that suit. And that might let you play your dagger. And you get to take a stab at who you think is the shadow. Or maybe you're the shadow and you have the dagger. So you could take out a shaman. That'll help move the thing towards the eclipse. So a lot going on here. As the game goes on, somebody might have a lot of points. So the roles change every round. So you see Chris has a lot of points and you know that he is a shaman along with you, but you don't want him to win. So you're trying to get him out of the game so that he doesn't win. You might be helping the shadows in that. So a lot of dynamics go on, emergent gameplay, Shamans is my number 18 pick. Such a fun, clever, beautiful card game.
Shamans is like my go-to game pretty much when I'm playing with new gamers and people that I think, even like people who I think wouldn't be interested at all in even regular hobby board games, even light hobby board games. But busting this deck of cards out, I have not had anybody who didn't enjoy it.
Great.
All right, well, my number 18 is another one that moved up a little bit this year. Not a whole lot, but a little bit. It moved from 20 to 18, and that is Obsession, designed by Dan Halligan and published by Kayenta Games. This is one that I've heard a lot of complaints about, and the complaints have generally been that it gets a little bit samey after a few plays. And the funny thing is, I feel like I am completely immune to that because I am continuously charmed by this game. Essentially what you are Victorian families. They're vying for social status in England, and you're doing that by inviting over just the right guests to your house for just the right events and just the right rooms in your house, and having the right servants on hand. So if you have a gentleman coming to visit, then you have to have a valet who's there to provide service. And I'm seeing more and more this pattern that's developing as I talk through these games. And it's funny because when I was making out this list and I was thinking about what I was going to say tonight, it wasn't so obvious to me. But now that I'm actually talking about these games, it is a very obvious pattern. This is another one where I feel like it's a Euro-y game. There's some worker placement. There's some hand management, but it's not the kind of thing you normally think of as being a highly thematic game. But this one is drenched in theme. There's a couple of games I think that take theme so deep in a not storytelling type of game. You know, you think about the solo games and co-op games and things like Nemesis and whatnot that have like these really deep stories. You don't normally think of this kind of a game as being like that. But this one and Watergate are two games that I think seem like they could be so dry and are so deeply thematic. It's almost next level. Like, I love reading the little cards that tell me about the people that I'm inviting over for my tea party and thinking about, who is this person trying to meet at the party, and why, what is the status that they're bringing to me? And I think that's lovely. One thing that I have not done yet, similar to Viticulture, I haven't gotten the Tuscany expansion yet. For this one, I have not gotten the upstairs downstairs expansion, which I understand is a great benefit to this game. Haven't gotten it yet. Would love to try that one. But even just with the base game, I am always charmed by Obsession.
This one amazes me because Chris was pushing back on this so much when I told him I wanted to play this game, and he fell in love with it instantly. And it's so funny to me. This game has not been as big of a hit for me, but I still enjoy it. It's got a nice mix of, like it's dry-ish mechanisms, but it adds flavor through some of the pictures, the cards, the names on the rooms, and it's fun to play. I like the mix, the little mini goals you're going for. It's a fun one. My number 18 is a newer game to me. It's a game I've only played a couple times so far, but had wonderful plays both times. And that's Distilled by Paverson Games. And Distilled is a game we reviewed several months back. We also talked about it on our recent SedonaCon coverage. It's a game about making liquor, about making alcohol. And it's fun. It's like every round is you're building a new little mini deck, and you're pushing your luck with how well you build it, how much money you spend on this mixture to hopefully get the right thing. But it's just got a great mix of a little bit of engine building, some cards you can buy from this market to make your ongoing engine better, market where you're buying improved ingredients you're going to get different bottles. All of it is just fun. Every time when you pick up that little stack of cards that you made for this mixture and then you pull off the head and the tail, it's just an exciting moment every time. And I love when a game does this. It adds strategic decisions, but those fun, exciting moments in it. And I think Distilled does a great job with that.
I think Chris had this on his list earlier on, or maybe not, but this is a fantastic game. And I'm worried that I'm repeating myself right now. It's a game that I wasn't too sure how it was going to work for me, but I absolutely loved it. It was so much fun. And the little engine building just adds to how you're making your little cocktails here. So what a great game.
I don't think Chris mentioned it yet, but Adam, you mentioned it as one of your runners up.
It might have been just outside my top 40.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Oh, I forget to mention my favorite thing about it. And I mean, I guess I kind of did, but it's that little deck building. It's that moment when you're pulling the head or the tail off, and it can be so frustrating, but it's also a really exciting moment.
I love that you guys like this game. One thing I also note is that it was a Kickstarter. So it's another good example of when a Kickstarter can actually be quite successful. So I was very happy with
Rare
that.
example.
What was Frosthaven again? Was that a Kickstarter?
I don't remember.
As was Obsession originally.
Well,
Yeah.
All right. My number 17 game, and a game that I am prognosticating will be on Chris's list at some point. This is Through the Ages, a new story of civilization. Is this a cheat? I don't know. I only played on the app because I've heard the actual board game is so many pieces flying around, these blue little nuggets of things flying from your food to your other thing, to your iron, to whatever. So I let the app do all that for me, and I let the app handle all my actions, my little white actions and my red actions. I don't have to worry about it. Did I make a mistake? I'm just going to hit undo 5 times and go back and do it all again and see if I can do it better. So the app experience here is just fantastic. I love how this is like a civ build, a tech tree game. Basically, you buy cards, you want to increase your iron production, your farm production, your science, your government. You have so many choices, and it all involves this river of cards flowing down from right to left. They have different cost brackets. How much do you want that iron, that next level iron production right now? You're going to sneak it from Chris, so he's going to be stuck in the Stone Age and making these crappy little irons of the rest of the game? Are you going to grab democracy before anyone else can get it and upgrade your government, get some more culture production throughout the course of the game? This is one for some reason Tim has just avoided. Chris and I have this on like a continual loop. I think one of the last games I had Michelangelo going, and he gets one of those guys, one of those Renaissance dudes, and he gets a culture for every smiley face that his civil buildings or what are those things called? The big old fancy purple cards.
Wonders, yes.
The wonders. Yeah. So, an extra culture per smiley face. And I had never exploited that combination before. And I think by the mid game, I had like 100 more culture than either Chris or the robot that we always play against. It usually schools me, at least. A fantastic game that I'm discovering new things about every time that I play it. And I've played it, I don't know, between 100 and 200 times. That's Through the Ages, a new story of civilization by Vlaada Chvátil.
Good choice.
There have been several episodes where you guys talked about this, and I keep saying, I should just give in and play it sometime.
You should.
Guys, at some point, let's do a review on it. Might be 5 years from now, but at some point, we'll cover it.
Hey, Tim, fear can be a very adaptive emotion. It can be very helpful. So I understand. He's afraid of us. No, just kidding. He'll probably kill us. My number 17 is one that we already heard about. I think it was Adam that mentioned it. And it is Lacrimosa, designed by Gerard Asensi and Ferran Renelius, and published by Devere Games. What a fun game. And this is one that is new to the list this year. It was not on the list last year. And in fact, I think it came out last year. So this is a new game, and it was a new game to us. We did a review on it not too long ago. So much fun. Essentially what you're doing is finishing Mozart's unfinished final work. And there's some oddities in the theme in how that, why are we moving around this map? And some of the same kind of things that I was complaining about with Darwin's Journey. They're minor complaints, though, because this game is so much fun. And I really thought it turned the thematic aspect of things on its head in a way that Adam already talked about. But I'll just say it again, just because I think it bears repeating. That oh, really? Another Renaissance Europe game, but in this one we're not building outhouses and farming sheep. We're making music. We're standing in the shoes of Mozart, and we're playing area control for who gets to finish a particular piece of the work. I just think that's so cool, and it's got a really nice production. It's really pretty, and it's the mechanisms of this game, I think, were outstanding. I think this is one of the relatively rare games where all of us, I think, were pretty enthusiastic about it. So I think on this one, my favorite part of the game was that area control. And I think it was mostly the fact that the area control, it just tickled me to death with that, the way that you were doing area control on pieces of a composition that you were trying to do. Like maybe somebody else got the drum line in this particular part, but you got the strings and the woodwinds. So take that, drum guy. And I just thought that was a neat, cheeky little bit of game design there. So nicely done, designers of Lacrimosa.
Yeah, fantastic game. And I only played it the one time, and I'm trying to remember the mechanism, the core mechanism that you take actions is you slide one card and get the top benefit and one card in and get the bottom benefit. I love that. I love that kind of making two choices in a turn and putting the right pieces together. Anyway, yeah, this was a really fun game. Loved Lacrimosa. All right, my number 17 is a game called Barrage. Barrage is a worker placement game, but with a lot of other stuff going on in it. Really interesting. It's not really area control, but you're building this infrastructure and you're trying to build infrastructure that's going to help you get the most benefit from it without, and hopefully maybe block off your opponents. And you have to, this game is a mean game and you have to play it like that. You have to exploit when your opponents put some infrastructure in place you can take advantage of, or build a dam right above the one that they just built a power station to try to absorb the water from. So many fun and tough choices here. And if you can get past that meanness, it is a blast. I want to talk about this for 1 second, though. Probably the only reason it's lower for me, because I really love this game. And we talked about balance at the beginning of the episode. And my last probably dozen plays of this game, the first move everybody takes is they take the one upgrade tile that has the wrench benefit on it. And maybe I'm sure there's a way to play around it. Adam will probably talk to that if he wants to. But that's the type of imbalance that is really frustrating when there's a game where you're going to see that tile every time, and it feels like that is the only right choice, and start playing with that thing. I just got invited to this game by a couple other new players I've been playing on Board Game Arena with, and the first move the first player did is he took that wrench tile, and I was like, okay, I can probably 85% guess that he's going to win this game regardless of anything else that happens. I wish I didn't even know that existed. And if I hadn't, like if we hadn't explored it enough to realize that, it wouldn't have mattered, right? It's okay if, that one thing somebody figures out and they exploit it. That's fun. Anyway, that's my one big complaint about this game at this point, because that's kind of made it soured the game for me. But I really enjoy this game. I keep seeing it at my local game store. I keep thinking, I really got to pick this up. Who knows who I'm going to play it with, but I think it's just such a great design. Otherwise, really fun and interesting, heavy-ish Euro. I really like it. Yeah,
the wrench tile is interesting. Chris and I were playing a game, and that's the first thing I did was pick up the wrench tile. I've played this game a bunch at 2, 3, and 4 players on Board Game Arena, almost exclusively. And there are counters to it. I think with 3 and 4 players, the players can self-regulate the balance and kind of counteract the guy with a wrench tile by taking the lower area dams and making him spend a little bit more on those upper, levies or the upper levels that the guy's going to have to build. So there are some counters. I'm not good enough to speak to them or know well how to counter any of them. I know that I've taken the wrench tile first and got just slaughtered at 2, 3, and 4 players by people who are much better at Barrage than I am. But yeah, Tim, I think you're right. In general, equal skill level, to me, I don't know what I'm talking about, but it seems like that wrench tile is very much of an advantage.
I don't know. I can vouch for how easy it is to have that tile and still get killed. So, but that's just me.
You may be very right. I think sometimes balance, it comes down to familiarity and experience, and something that seems overpowered in early plays or at like a mid-level play, or even, in a meta group, maybe isn't, but still, something that feels like the right move every time on an open play feels a little sad to me, but that's cool. It's still a great game. Obviously it's this high on my list. It's a game I love to play. It's great.
I will say, I don't think I've seen a game where it hasn't been the first thing picked if it's available.
Yeah.
It's very rare.
This would be such an easy fix too, because like really, if they just released a expansion, maybe there is one, but the expansion we played didn't have them. If there was an expansion that just gave you a little bit more variety in those advanced tiles, so that either you could leave that one out, or it just doesn't show up in every first round or every second round of the game, then that would probably completely eliminate that concern for me. But yeah, whatever. It's a good game.
All right, my number 16 is one that Tim has already talked about. This is Beyond the Sun by Dennis K. Chan. Chris makes a good point. Yeah, the opener is pretty boring, pretty standard. Those first 2, 3, 4 turns, you're just kind of getting the ball rolling, building the foundation of what's happening. But there are some fun little interactions that can happen there. This game is relatively slick and pretty smooth, so it gets going and it ends pretty quick. I think one of the things I enjoy most is that little area control map. It's just cards of planets and A deck and B deck, and you're, do I want to move my ships over here and take away a production from Tim or Chris? I can distribute these guys out. And now I've got control of 3 or 4 planets. Hey, that accomplishes one of these little achievements. That'll give me a little token there. I don't know. There's a lot of different directions to go in this game. Despite the repetitive text, it's, they're going to distribute differently across the board, and you're rarely going to see the same combinations of text growing up that tree as the game goes on. So I still enjoy this one very much because I think it plays well and swiftly at 2, 3, and 4 players. So Beyond the Sun, my number 16.
Great pick.
I am glad it makes you guys happy. My number 16 is one that also makes some of us happy. Adam talked about this already. It's a new game this year to me. And in fact, it's one that we just reviewed a few episodes back. And that is Revive by Helga Messner, Isla Svensson, Anna Wormland, Christian Amundsen Osby, and published by Aporta Games. Such a fun game. Lots of stuff happening in this game. This is where you're moving out from this central location where your civilizations, all the civilizations that the players are playing, are coming out from this central spot where the Earth, this frozen Earth that's been under ice for generations, for hundreds or thousands of years, is starting to emerge into this thawing world. And as the game progresses, the thaw continues, and you see the snow go away in unearthing cities and lakes and all this neat stuff happening. So lots of thematic fun happening there and some really cool mechanisms. A great game. If you're interested in this one, go back a few episodes and listen to our review of it. My favorite thing, I think then and now, is your machine. There's this machine that each player has where you have 3 resources. Each one's a different color. As you get upgrades, you move along these tracks on the machine. And every time your token moves past a particular spot, or for some of the more powerful ones, 2 of your tokens have to move to certain places, to certain locations, then you get to open up a new benefit. And then once you have that new benefit, if you have a lightning bolt to spend, which is basically using some electricity, then you can activate your machine and get that benefit. And so there are these little beneficial actions that you can take whenever you need them. They're like little anytime actions. And such a fun way of doing it, having this machine, which is not only super cool to look at, it's fun to manipulate. I like how it operates by moving your tokens along the tracks to get to the different benefits, but also the fact that it's got this really awesome 2-layer board that you get to slot your token into as you're moving it around. I just think that is so delightful. I always love that. It actually reminds me a little bit of the islands in Darwin's Journey, which is another place where this was done very effectively. And that was one of my favorite parts of that game. So obviously, I'm a sucker for those kind of tracks, and I thought it was extremely well done in Revive.
It's so well done, in fact, that it's my number 16 as well. Revive is a really fun game. I picked up a copy of this after we reviewed it. I've played it several times since. I think it may be higher for me next year after a little bit more play. In fact, I just picked up the game when I made this list, had played one solo game with it, and I'm liking it more and more every time I play. It's just a great game, quick turns. 5 simple actions that a player can take, but very thoughtful and interesting decisions. A lot of great engine building in here. That machine Chris is talking about. And this game comes with a little 5-game campaign, story-driven campaign. Now it's very minor. Okay, don't get your expectations up too high. It's a little deck of cards that basically says, okay, when you play your first game, read this card, and it gives you a little story, and then you flip it over when you finish the game, and it gives you some story, but it unlocks a new mechanism every time you go through one of these games as well. What does that mean? It doesn't change the game drastically. In fact, you could throw all these in on teaching someone a first game. That's probably what you would do after you played through the first 5 times. But it does give a little story as it's introducing these things. And my favorite change from that little campaign, it comes after the first game. This is a little bit of a spoiler. So if you're really interested in playing this spoiler free, skip on. But You guys will dig this. There's that little switch action you can activate on as one of the actions on your turn. And all it does is it gives you a resource of your choice. What that switch does after it unlocks this new mechanism is that it lets you take one of the cards that somebody else has played on the top of their player board and get the benefit from the top of that card and then put it in their discard pile, which means they'll get to use it next turn. So it actually creates some really interesting choices depending on when somebody else plays a card, whether you're unlocking something so that they can use that slot again, whether you're getting a really excellent benefit for it, really adds to both the interaction, but also just the variety of choices you're going to get to use with that's really cool.
That's very cool too. That's like a nice little positive interaction touch right there. I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is one of those games that does have asymmetric player powers. And the first time we played, I think I incorrectly made the assumption that like the power that Adam was playing with was super powerful. But I've actually played solo with that and I keep like some other factions, and I keep ending up in a fairly similar point range. So I didn't find it overpowered when playing repeatedly. So I think that was on a first play. Adam just picked up the puzzle a little bit quicker than I did. But this is also one of those games where I think asymmetry is balanced out by just the variety of other things that can come in, the cards you can pull from the market, and the tiles you can add to your engine. And so you can just kind of take that asymmetry and run with it if you get the right grouping. There are just so many great pieces to this. I think it's going to go higher for me. I love all of the mechanisms, how they all work together. It's just fun play. It's a great theme. So Revive is my number 16 this year. We'll see if it sticks around next year.
Yeah, hearing you guys talk about this and get me excited to play it again. I want to play it again very soon. So hopefully that happens. My number 15 pick is Gaia Project.
Nice.
Hey.
Yeah, this is designed by Jens Drogemuller and Helge Ostertag, and currently published by Capstone Games. It's on Board Game Arena, so the three of us in particular have gotten to play it over and over and over again. It's fantastic. There's a little bit of positive interaction. If people are building within your little neighborhood, a nearby planet, that'll give you a little bonus. If you want to take it, you don't have to take it. So that's nice. And then you have this amazing player board where you're shuffling buildings up and down. Do you want to upgrade this guy? Well, now it upgrades, and the previously building is going to go back and cover up some other benefit that you would have gotten. So you're managing that. Which direction do you want to upgrade? There's these tech tracks, all these options of things you can do on your turn. I always kind of start up this game off meandering around, not sure where I want to go. And then my favorite thing happens a lot of times in this game where I have this moment of clarity. I know exactly what I want to do. I need to do this, and then I do this, and then this, and this, and this, and this, and this thing, and this thing, and this, and that's going to get me the victory by like 50 points. Usually when I have that moment, I'm excited and I get it all jotted down. And then somewhere in the middle of those steps, I'm like one green cube short of the next 20 things I need to do. And it all goes downhill from that. Still have a blast doing that. And how do I recover? What can I do now? So this is a fantastic. What do the guys say in the tweeter comments that no dice, non-deterministic or deterministic, whatever the word is, there's no luck. You can basically plan this thing. You've said this before, Tim. You can basically plan this thing out right from your faction, right from the very beginning, if you wanted to do that. Anyway, that's Gaia Project, a fantastic Euro-style game set in space with some so-so art. Still, nonetheless, a very, very fun game. Gaia Project.
A fun game. And I just feel like I need to say, for the record, that I recently had my first victory at this. So,
Yes,
yay me. It felt good to finally win a game.
Congrats, Chris. Congrats.
Thank you. My number 15 is a game that was on my list last year, and it dropped down a little bit. Last year, it was actually ranked at number 6, and you might be surprised to hear that this one dropped as much as it did. And it's Nemesis, designed by Adam Kopinski and published by Awaken Realms Games. The reason why this one dropped, I think, has almost nothing to do with gameplay, quality of the gameplay, or any of that. It has to do with the difficulty of getting this game to the table. And I'm not sure that that's even a fair consideration, because I think this game feels heavier to me than it actually is. It's not actually that difficult, but it is the kind of thing that feels more like an experience that you need to be prepped for, and you need to have the right group of people to play it, as opposed to a lot of these games where it's just, okay, we're going to sit down and we're going to do a bunch of stuff. And then, so this game, I feel it takes a little bit more of an emotional commitment. And the reason for that is because, for those who have not played it or heard us talking about it, Nemesis is this wonderful game It's a semi-co-op, which means that you are working with your co-players, you're working with the other players, but not necessarily all the way. So you're all on this ship where there is an alien-style invader that has come aboard, and you're waking up groggily from your hypersleep chambers, and you don't remember where anything is on the ship. So you're going around and you're exploring and you're trying to avoid the aliens, and they're trying to get you, and you're trying to, well, and I guess that's the big question. What are you trying to do? Because maybe if you're one player, your secret goal is to run that spaceship into the sun because your only priority is to destroy those aliens. Or maybe you're the corporate lackey and your goal is to get one of those aliens back to Earth because you want to study it, which means they're probably actually going to take over the Earth. That's where a lot of the fun in this game comes from. There's a lot of great stuff happening in terms of exciting moments and card play and battles where you're, surviving by the skin of your teeth. I think on our game that we played, the last one, I ended up, killing the mother alien, the mother alien queen by running into her with my wheelchair. I was the scientist. But the best part of this game, my favorite part, is that deep level of paranoia, because you don't know if you're on the same team as your teammates and they're not telling you. I might have said, oh yeah, I went and I set the ship on a course to Earth because I want us to get to Earth. And maybe what I really did was I sent it on a course out to the outer rim of the solar system, or maybe into the sun. Who knows? Because maybe that was my goal. And I just remember when we played this at Portland Con last year, everybody was standing up around the table. Everybody was like freaking out and going, can we trust Steve? I don't know. Chris said he did this thing, but did he really? I don't know. Somebody go check on him. I don't know. Can I do that? No, I got to take care of myself. I mean, the intensity of this game is great. So I feel like maybe I'm even being unfair to it, dropping it because of what I perceive as a difficulty getting to the table. Maybe it'll be back up in the top 10 next year, but either way, even at 15, that's saying a lot. So great game. I can't wait to get this one played again.
Yeah, never have I started a game, looked at the opening, my hidden objectives, and then immediately started to sweat, because once I saw what my possible objectives were, I was like, oh my gosh, what does that mean that my co-players are, and what are they going to be doing? And it was constant paranoia. What a thematic game. Some really fun experiences with this one. So my couple plays. Great pick, Chris. Yeah. All right. My number 15 is my only solo-only game on the list. And I mentioned this when we first started the list, that this is really hard for me to rank against other games, because usually my ideal game experience is going to be with playing with other players. But this game was so unique and so fun to me that I just had to add it to the list. And I kept thinking of just mechanically and physically looking and playing with this game, I just had to get it on here. It kept winning against other ones I ranked. That's Paperback Adventures. This is by Tim Fowers and Sky Larson. Paperback Adventures is a little bit of a word game. It's a little bit of a word deck builder game, but it's got a great little 3-story arc. Every time you play the game, you're essentially going to get a hand of cards, and the cards have some icons on the right-hand side of the cards and some on the left, and then they're letters in the middle. And so what you're going to do every turn is you're going to try to make a word with those letters, and you're going to splay them either to the right or the left, and you're going to get all the icons that are listed depending on the way you splayed it. And then whichever card is on the top, you also get the unique benefit that's on that card. So every hand is going to feel different, the benefits you can get from it, etc. When you use that card, the one that you've gotten the ability from, then you discard it for the rest of the game. It's out of the game. So the clock on this is that you have to try to beat these opponents before you run out of cards. Now, the opponents are this little card on a tray, and what happens is that they just have a few different actions on them. So you've got a little marker that shows the first round, they're going to take one action. Maybe it's going to deal 5 damage to you. The second round, they're going to block for 5 and do something else. Really simple managing this, because all you do is you play your hands. Then once you're done with your hand, you take what the opponent did to you, what the monster did to you, then you move the marker down 1 space. And you're trying to make it through the end of this 3-character campaign. And after you finish each character, if you defeat the first one, your life stays the same. So any life you've lost, you've got to carry over to the next round. But then also you're going to get some benefit from the monster you defeated. And this is my favorite part of the game. There's such great fun engine building in this. This is a very much a roguelike deck builder, very similar to something like Slay the Spire, where you're going to, over the course of the campaign, build up all kinds of unique effects that you hope work well together. They can be items that you can buy from this market, or what they call MacGuffins, which are just ongoing effects, or new cards for your deck. So it just plays out and builds up in a different way every time. And it's really fun. The monsters you're playing against have great artwork on them, and they have a unique style. Each of the 3 characters that you can purchase for this game have different decks that you're starting with and different other cards that come with them. And so the decks feel different. The abilities that are on the cards feel different. I've loved playing this game. Now, Adam, I know you bought this. I don't think I ever heard you say anything about it. Did you ever get a chance to play it?
So I was going to ask a leading question on this one, Tim. What has been the playtime for you on your plays?
It's probably about 90 minutes if I can make it all the way through the final monster, but I don't usually play it like that. What I've found myself doing is I'll set it up on my game table and I'll play for 25, 30 minutes, get through the first one, and then take a step away, and then I'll come back and finish it later. And it's really easy to get back into. So I'm not usually sitting down playing for 90 minutes, but it does feel like I can complete a part of that game in about 30 minutes because of that. Has that been a problem for you?
I think solo games, I just don't have the time. I feel a little bit selfish. If I'm going to get that going, especially for 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I am pretty busy with a little 2-year-old running around and 2 8-year-olds running around as well. So yeah, I had this one. I took a look at it. It looks super fun and super engaging, but after thinking about it, I don't know when I'm going to get this one played. I ended up selling this one without really getting into it much. I just thought about it and said, I don't know, when I'm going to be able to get this one played. So for my situation, it wasn't right, even though it looks outstanding and so fun and so clever, and it looks like right up my alley. But yeah, I haven't played it.
Cool. Yeah, I think the reason that I've got a handful of other solo games that I really love, but this one just really stands out to me as so unique. The experience of doing it didn't feel like any of my other like multiplayer games or anything else really that I'd played. So that's why it really stands out to me. I've had a lot of fun with it though. So if you're a solo player and have a little bit of time, I'd say check it out.
Okay, my number 14 game is The Expanse, the board game. This is designed by Jeff Engelstein, and the big publishing miss on this one was by WizKids Games. I say that because, I want to focus on the negative. I'll do some positive first, then we'll go negative, then we'll end with a positive. That's what they told me to do in management school. This is... You basically need 4 players to play this one. It's a card-driven game. There's a market of cards come down. Each player is a different faction from the outstanding book series, The Expanse, also a TV show on Amazon that covered the first basically 6 books. If you haven't seen it, if you're into sci-fi, stick with it throughout the first few episodes and then you'll be hooked. At least I was. You're one of these factions from the show. You're placing little cubes out on different planets. There's these different scoring phases. These cards pop out in the market. Are you in a good position to buy it and get some giant points? I like the way the scoring knocks out. And then I like how you can hold a card for the scoring phase, or you can like to use it later. And the Rocinante's out there. Whoever's in last place gets to use a Rocinante. And then when you buy cards, you use points that you have to buy cards if you want to. So that's kind of fun too. I love this game. A lot of tricks. There's not going to be any super huge moves. Maybe you've set it up all right to buy one of these scoring cards and have a big scoring round and you can get a big lead. But a lot of times the scoring is going to be tight till the very end. And if you set it up all perfectly, then you're going to win. A tense, exciting game. I think the tension in this one is my favorite part of it because you never know who's going to pop ahead until the very last thing. Whoever has a Rocinante has a big advantage, I think, going into the final scoring. A game I would like to play more. It was my number 4 last time we did this list. It's dropped down to number 14. I just haven't gotten it played. I don't have 4 people to play it with. And it's probably not something I'm going to bring to all the cons that we have, so I don't get it played there. And then people have to really be into The Expanse, do they? That'll help, at least if they're into The Expanse, to get this one played some more too. Regardless if you're into The Expanse or not, it's a great board game with some shoddy cards and a shoddy production. A lot of fun if you like this kind of game, sort of a Twilight Struggle, like a card-driven sort of region control. You're vying for the most, in Twilight Struggle, you have like I have 6 power over here. Now you have 8. So yeah, you're putting your cubes out, trying to have the most number of cubes in all these different regions to get points at the right time. Very fun. That's the Expanse board game.
A great game if you really, really like squinting so that you don't see the crappy production. A fine game with a really sad production.
I had such a fun time the first time we played this, and what I remember the most is that there's I think it's with the expansion, but there's this proto-molecule that kind of move around the board, and if you're in control of that area that it's in, you get some bonus, I don't remember, points or something like that. And all I remember is like the whole game is that me going in an area taking control, then Chris going in there getting even with me, and us just blowing each other up like every single round. I think him and I ended up like last and second to last just because he just wouldn't leave me alone. Such typical Chris move.
I love how Tim is always the victim in these stories.
Tim is always the victim every game.
So
sad. I feel sorry for the guy.
Why do you keep picking on me then, Adam?
Speaking of victim, so my number 14 game is one that I'm not going to say a whole lot about because Adam already said it all. It's Through the Ages, A New Story of Civilization by Vlaada Chvátil. I will just say what my favorite thing about this game is because he already talked about it. Actually, he kind of talked about this too. It's the app. This is a game that looks like it's a beast of a setup. There's tons of cards, tons of chits, tons of this, tons of that. But man, the app on this thing is probably one of the finest game apps I have ever seen. It's so elegant, so nice, so easy to use, and so much fun. Get it. Try this game. It's absolutely wonderful and a great choice for you, Adam. A great choice for me here as well.
Nice. All right, cool. We'll move in through this age. We're going to talk about my number 14, which is Clank Catacombs. Now, I've had a Clank game, I think, in my top 10 the last 2 years, and this is the first time that it's fallen out of my top 10. But Clank Catacombs has taken the space of the other Clank games in the series for me. I love this game. I love the series. It's always fun to me. I don't understand why you guys didn't enjoy your first play of this, especially Chris as a Clank fan, but Clank Catacombs just takes the formula and adds just the right mix of a little bit of variety by this modular board, this dungeon that kind of grows over the course of the game, the little lockpick mechanism, the prisoner mechanism, some of the things that they added that just fix some of the little pain points with previous Clank iterations. I think this game is fantastic. I think it's so fun. I think the only reason it fell down on my list a little bit is, there's that element of like you play games with friends, you introduce your friends to something you really love, and then they kind of are mad on it. And then it makes you feel a little bit sad or a little mad on it as well. And I think...
I don't know what you're talking about, Tim.
No, the secret to that, Tim, is introduce your friends to the good stuff.
And I think that, honestly, just watching you guys not have a great time with it made me, I think if you'd had a great time, if you'd had the kind of fun experience that I've seen come from Clank in the past, I think that it would probably be up higher for me. But that's not to say I'm always happy to play Clank, and the Clank Catacombs, again, is my favorite in the series. There was a Clank Legacy 2 Kickstarter that was out recently, and I love the original Clank Legacy. I didn't end up backing it because, I don't need to pay in advance for some 2 years from now. I'm sure that I will be able to pick it up in retail, and I think that I most likely will when it comes out. But for now, Clank Catacombs will be the Clank that sticks around in my collection.
I just feel like I need to say something about the fact that I don't want to come off as a hater on this game. If this was not part of the Clank series, I might actually feel even better about it because it's a decent game. It is a good game. It does a lot of the same things that the rest of the Clank series does. The rest of the Clank series just did it better, I thought. So, I'm happy to play this one again. And I'm also interested to see whether or not, if we don't get those ridiculous twirl around the dungeon things, that maybe it would feel better to me, enjoy it more.
This is literally a silly push your luck game. I don't understand why that was so painful for you.
No, this is the complaint you always make. You're trying to do. I had my route all planned out. I was going to get out. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even another player who messed with me. It was some random card from the game. Right. Some random card from the game messed with me.
Thank you.
And I can't even do anything, but I did it like 3 times.
We all got messed up though, at the same time.
Tim complains about everything. How could he not complain about this?
Tim complained about everything. Yeah. Makes no sense. Anyway, another game that I heart very much that you guys, I think, are lukewarm on. This was my number 1 last year, and it's dropped down to 13 because I never get to play it. This is PAX Pamir 2nd edition by Cole Wehrle, the first game from Whirligig Games, and they're pumping out some awesome hits, or at least some very unique games from their line so far and upcoming. Anyway, PAX Pamir is an area control tableau builder. You're sort of playing one of these, a warlord in Afghanistan during an old school war back in the day. So are you going to align with the Afghanis themselves, the Afghanistan government, or are you going to align with the British, or are you going to align with the Russians? And you get to shift during the game if you want to, versus, what you think is going to be most advantageous. So there's these beautiful armies represented by these, I don't know what they are, like clay bricks. And these are the same things that are the roads. They're in these different sort of pastel colors that you're putting out on this cloth map. So the production is one of the best I have ever seen. The gameplay is some of the best I have ever seen. The tableau building is fantastic. Some of the special powers, the way the map connects to the tableau is neat. There's control out on the map, and then there's control out in the tableaus too. You're sending little spies to march around your opponent's tableaus and sort of hold them hostage, or are you going to take them out? Or are you just going to make them spend $1 to use that card? Such neat mechanisms here in this game, a lot of intricacies. I absolutely love this game. I'm talking about and getting myself more excited about it. I think part of this too was I used to play it solo a bunch during the pandemic when there wasn't anything else to do, and stuff's opening back up and I haven't gone back to it as much. A game I still absolutely love and would love to play all the time if I could is PAX Pamir 2nd edition.
Yeah, and this is one that I've never played, so it sounds interesting. It sounds cool, and it looks really nice too. So I'd be happy to try that one sometime.
We should try it.
Yeah, this game is interesting to me because it's such a great design, but it's a game that I don't have a lot of fun playing, but I still want to go back and play it more. I don't know why that is exactly. It's cool, it's one of these games where there's card markets and you're always picking different cards and trying to do different things with them. And I think the interplay of the mechanisms and that card market and the economy there, and then your own people in your city or whatever, and how you can send spies out to assassinate them or whatever, as well as the area control in the middle. It's a great thing that works well together. This weird thing where you can switch factions in the middle of the game. Yeah, really, really cool design. And maybe something, I think I've only played this on Tabletop Simulator with Adam way back when we first started playing games together. So I'd love to try this in person sometime. Very, very cool design.
All right, moving on to number 13. Actually, I'm going to go back for a second because I've been talking about where things fell last year, and I didn't mention that about Through the Ages, A New Story of Civilization. This is another one that didn't change a whole lot. Last year, it was number 16. This year, it's number 14. So it actually moved up a couple spaces. And a very similar situation with my next game. My number 13 game is another one that I'm not going to say a whole lot about because somebody, in this case, Tim, already talked about it tonight. But this game was number 15 last year. It's up to number 13 this year. And it is La Granja. Such a great game. Because Tim already talked about it, I'm not going to say a whole lot, but I will mention my favorite part of this game. And he mentioned this as well, because this is just such a great part of the game. It is those amazing 4 function cards that you could decide, do you want to build onto your farm? Do you want to create a special power for yourself? Do you want to add a new field, or do you want to have a market barrow that you can fill up and score some big points? Those card choices, I think, are such an enjoyable part of this game. They really make this one stand out. And thankfully, they really make up for some of the really, really bad production on this game. This is one of the most uninteresting looking games I think that I've ever seen. This one might actually even come close to beating out the Expanse, the board game. So I'm really interested to see when Tim gets the deluxe master version of this game, what that looks like, because it can't help but look better than the base game.
Yeah, great pick, Chris. This list has been interesting because every one of these games, when I look at the number it is, I'm like, why isn't that higher? But then I look up the list and I see how many other great games there are above it. And so I just was looking at my number 13 here and thought to myself, this can't possibly be this low, but apparently there's just that many amazing games. My number 13 is Lost Ruins of Arnak. I've had such a fun time playing this game the last couple of years. I play it regularly. I'm still a regular if I want to bust out a 30-minute solo Euro. It's a great one to go to. Chris talked a little bit about it, I think last week, but it's got an expansion that gives some asymmetric powers. But beyond that, just a lot more content, which I think the game did need, and I'm excited about that. There's another expansion coming up that's going to add some more cards and content, as well as a little campaign with it. So I'll be picking that up for sure. But Lost Ruins is always fun for me. Played it a ton in person. My wife plays it with me. I played it a ton on Board Game Arena. Yeah, Lost Ruins of Arnak is going to be a favorite for a long time to come.
Was this in your top 5, top 10 last year? Do you remember?
I think it was actually close last year. I think it was like 12 or 13 last year too. I don't have my list from last year. I don't know why I expected it to be higher, but I just love every time I get invited to a game of this, or every time someone will bust it out and play with me. It's colorful. It's simple Euro mechanisms, but it's just always a fun experience. So yeah, like I said, I think the only reason it's this low is because there's so many other great games coming.
Yeah, for some reason I thought it'd be higher on your list too. The way it seems like you love this one. It's one of your favorite games, but I guess 13 is still one of your favorite games. Yeah,
13's pretty good.
My number 12, down from number 8 last year, is Innis or Inish, the board game. This one has fallen because you guys don't like it. No one likes to play it with me either, but I enjoy this one tons. It's got a beautiful production, beautiful artwork. I love the artwork here. Well, the designer is Christian Martinez. The artists are Dimitri Bilak, and Jim Fitzpatrick is one of the artists who does the art on the cards for this. And it's just kind of this psychedelic, beautiful art. He is the guy that did the famous Che Guevara poster or painting, the print that where you see Che, and it's this very recognizable, iconic print from the 60s or 70s. Anyway, the gameplay is outstanding. The cards are these beautiful tarot-sized cards. The win conditions are relatively simple. Control 6 territories, be in charge of 6 other members of other people's factions, or have 6 sanctuaries under your control as well. So a couple different ways, unique win conditions here that are fun to kind of manage, and you can sneak up on those if you're being clever. There's these red cards that come out. Then those can be ultra powerful as well if you use them in the right situation. Sometimes you're reading, you're like, this is never going to be helpful. When am I use it? And then you're like, oh, I can use this here and totally wreak all kinds of havoc. So that's pretty fun. But my favorite thing about it is the standard, I think it's 16 or 18, however many standard green cards there are that come out every round during this draft. And you're going to get very familiar with those cards very quickly, and you're going to know who has each one, and you're going to come up with ideas of how to counter each one or the right time to play these different cards in your hand. So the draft and follow on hand management with these very familiar green cards is one of my favorite parts about Inish, an outstanding, unique, beautiful area control game.
Alrighty then.
I'll say, because Chris doesn't want to talk about it, Inish is a really cool game. And I think the only reason why I don't like it more is that kind of like push and pull of like once somebody starts to get, it's just the constant like follow the leader thing in here. And I don't know, I'd be happy to play more. I think Inish is pretty cool.
All right. Well, my number 12 game is apparently just tonight is the night of my trying to copy everybody else, but it's another Tim game. It is Distilled by Dave Beck and published by Paverson Games. So much fun. I mean, one of my hobbies is drinks and mixology, and that's why that's why I do the drink segment on the show. That's why I spend as much time drinking mixed drinks as I do, probably more than I should. But it's also one of the reasons why I thought this game just seemed exceptionally fascinating. And I backed the Kickstarter on it, and I'm so happy that this one actually panned out, because it was everything that I'd hoped it was going to be, and actually more. I enjoy it more than I thought I was going to. In fact, I played with my wife a couple times, and she liked it more than I thought she was going to. So this game has just been an all-around winner. You guys enjoyed it, which of course is always a treat when your friends enjoy the game. And my favorite part of this game, other than just the overall theme of the unique theme of distilling spirits, it's got to be the same thing that Tim had mentioned when he brought this game up. And that is that the heads and tails, where you're pulling off the top and the bottom card, and just the fun little push your luck element that injects into the game, that you can, if you want to spend the resources, you can almost guarantee that you're going to get, and you can guarantee that you're going to get to make what you want to make. But boy, it takes a bit of an investment. So you're probably a lot more likely to push your luck a little bit, and then who knows what's going to happen. And that's always a fun choice. And I love that about this game. Just overall a big winner. And again, a good example of when a Kickstarter can actually deliver in a way that's even better than what you're hoping to, that it's going to, from the hype.
You distilled all your thoughts down very succinctly there, Chris. Good job. All right. My number 12 is Underwater Cities. This was designed by Vladimir Masucci and published by his publishing company, Delicious Games. Underwater Cities is a little bit of a world building game. You're building this little underwater city, but the way you're doing that is worker placement, very tight worker placement on the main board, accompanying with every turn when you take a worker placement space, you play a card at the same time. And if the color on the card matches the space you take, you get that bonus as well. And you usually want to do that, but sometimes you really need that space on the board. It's a super fun game. I think that's my favorite part about it. It's just combining those two choices every time. And of course, there's limited spaces on the board. So if you want to get something done, you better rush in there fast and hope it matches the color of the card you're wanting to play at the same time. It's got a little bit of engine building. Some of the cards you play build up ongoing effects for you, but some of them are just instant effects. And it's fun to watch your city develop. And as you do those, there's 3 income phases during the game. They're going to basically give you resources and money based on the size of, the different structures you've built into your city, and watching those build up and getting that big payday at the end of the 4th round or the 7th round or 10th round is always super exciting. So yeah, Underwater Cities. There is a great expansion for this that adds kind of almost like a prelude expansion, kind of like Terraforming Mars, where it gives everybody a little bit of a kickstart, some kind of asymmetric starting conditions and powers. It also came with dual layer boards and a bunch of other boards to play with, and a whole bunch more cards in there. So I recommend get the expansion with this. If you like the game, it'll add a ton of variety for you. But yeah, love Underwater Cities.
Have you been able to play this one much lately, Tim? I haven't heard much about it.
Yeah, a little bit. I played it solo occasionally, and then this is a game that I'll be introducing to one of my new groups locally very soon. I think it's going to be a hit for them. But I've had a good amount of play with it. I think even before we reviewed it, I'd played it a ton. And so still a game that's always like a top choice for me if I can get some people. It runs a little long, I think, is one of the challenges with it. Like, even I've taught it to Danielle and she likes it well enough, but it's going to be like a 2-hour game with 2 players, and a little longer with 3 or 4. And so for a Euro game that is fairly straightforward, it runs a little bit long, but it's always a good payoff for me. I love the game. I've always been terrible at it. I don't think I've ever won the game, but I still have fun playing it every time.
Oh, you certainly won the game against me many times.
Okay, well, that's good.
All right, my final game on the list tonight, number 11, is, I don't even think it was on my list previous year, is Azul. This is a game by Michael Kiesling. You guys give me some heat because I talk about it so much, but it's on Board Game Arena. It's been one of the most played on Board Game Arena. It was the most played. I think Arc Nova came out, and now Arc Nova is usually the top most played game on Board Game, but Azul's still hanging strong at number 2. I've had quite the journey with this one. I started going and playing with it, and how are these people so good? I keep losing all the time. And try to study it and figure out what was going on. I haven't read any strategy guides or anything, just trying to do my best on my own and figure things out. And my rating went up to I got up above 500 ELO at one point, and then I started getting my butt kicked. And then I went down below 300, and now I'm so it's been quite the roller coaster trying to figure out how to play this game. Simple, easy game to learn. Its weight is 1.76 on out of 5 on Board Game Geek. But the skill ceiling is incredibly high on this one. There's some people I just can't beat, no matter how many times I play them. Even you would think with enough draws out of the bag, enough lucky tile draws, that maybe one of those times I'd get lucky and be able to get all the right tiles I need at the right time. But no, there's people I can't beat. It's crazy. So I'm going to keep trying and learning things about Azul, because there's so much to learn about this game. And it's been shocking to me. It's one of these abstracts. I don't know if it's akin to Othello or chess or something like that. It's a lot more fun than those games to me, because it's quick and plays in 15 minutes, and you can run it back and play it again and try something new, or try the same thing and try and do it better. That's Azul, my number 11 game.
I've learned a lot about Azul from playing it. You know what I've learned? I've learned that I suck at playing Azul.
It's hard.
I played this game a whole bunch, and once I got to a certain point, I felt like, yeah, I'm pretty competitive now. I started playing Adam again, because I just avoided that like the plague for a while. And then I got in a couple of games, and I'm like, I think I won 1 or 2. And then I was like, oh yeah, I'm bringing it now. And now he just every time he just smack. It's embarrassing. So I just don't play him anymore. I'll probably start again once I get my confidence back. But right now I'm just oh.
Adam, have you played the Master Chocolatier version, which is like the original Azul, but with some minor asymmetry in the factories?
Yeah, Chris and I played that one time with some little tweaks, and it was kind of neat. It wasn't bad, but I just prefer the straight, thinky, braininess, mathematical perfection of original Azul more than any of these other Azuls out there.
Yeah. Chris, I think you probably, if you're going to initiate a game with that, we should do that one. It'll give you a little bit of, like he can't stick to his one normal strategy, give you a little variety in what you can do. I don't know. Give it a shot a couple times. I mean, I only played it once also, and I thought it was just fine. But I think probably if I play it so much these days that I almost maybe I'll have to start pulling that one into the mix too, just for some variety.
That's a good idea. I should do that. Watch out, Adam.
Uh-oh.
I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you at the chocolate factory.
Chocolate time.
It's on, baby.
Yeah.
Wrapping it up for this week is my number 11 pick. Just getting ready to get into that top 10. But my number 11 is Dune Imperium, designed by Paul Dennen and published by Direwolf Games. Adam, I remember back on a couple episodes ago, you had mentioned Dune as one of your runners-up, but that was old school Dune, right? That wasn't this Dune.
That's correct. Old school Dune was one of my runners up. That's the 1960s, republished lately. That's old, different Dune.
Okay. I have a feeling that we're going to be hearing about this game twice next week, at least.
At least twice.
We will see.
I may even talk about it a third time. Now, this is such a fine game. There's a great combination of things happening in this game. It's got deck building, which I love. It's got some area control. It's got worker placement. So there's such a wonderful combination of things that were put together in a very thematic package, an exceptionally simple but elegant design package, which is great. And it's got a couple of good expansions. So if you just want to buy the base game, great. You're going to have a really good time. If you want to make it even better, you can get the Rise of Ix expansion. And if you get tired of playing with the Rise of Ix expansion in the base game, Spring for Immortality, and it'll give you a couple more new things you can do. So there's a lot of different options here. But this game, to me, just never feels like it gets old. I'm probably feeling particularly warm to this game right now, which actually this is from after I made this list. But last week I played this with my game group here in Portland, and I won my second game ever of it. The first one I won when we were playing in SedonaCon, and now I've won second time. I feel like I've turned into a bit of a powerhouse. But my favorite part about this game is the deck building in it. It's done so nicely. There's some games that just do a great job of integrating deck building into a game that features a lot of other different elements. Clank is another great example of that, particularly Clank in Space, which I've already mentioned. Dune is another game that does that so exceptionally well. I love playing this game, and I love doing the deck building in it, but it's not just the deck building. There's so many other fun things happening there as well. I can't wait to hear what you guys both had to say about it next week. Ha!
Bold prediction, Chris.
Take that, spoiler alert.
Also, Chris, I noticed that you're claiming to be a powerhouse. I feel like you're throwing down. You're ready for a rematch. See if you can hold your belt, your golden belt, or whatever the heck the wrestlers call it.
Oh, I'm ready. The golden belt. It's time to fight for the golden belt, baby.
Great pick, Chris. Well, this was higher for you last year, wasn't it? Wasn't this in your top 10 last year?
This game was actually, and thank you for reminding me that. It was number 8 last year. It's number 11 this year. Another one that I have to admit, there's nothing about this game that has changed. I don't feel more strongly about it one way or the other. It's just the fact that there's other games that have kind of taken up, residence and maybe higher up on the list. But exceptionally good game. And I feel like once you get into the top 20 games of all time, I mean, everything is just of such high quality that it's all just frosting.
Exactly. My number 11 game, and the last game we're going to talk about this week, is Scythe, designed by Jamie Stegmaier and published by Stonemaier Games. This is actually higher on my list this year than it was the last couple. And the last few plays of it, I've just loved this game. It's actually, I think, the opposite of what Chris said last week. He said he was disappointed about some of the ways that you could win this game that didn't feel like what he was going for, the area control or the stars. But that's what I like about it. And I like that the more I play this game, the more I play with different people, it's fun to see people explore different strategies with it. We also talked about this related to balance. And I think that is a big negative if you just play with the base game. The 5 base factions, there's a couple that are clearly more powerful. There's no doubt about it. And I won't play with them, especially when I'm teaching new players. But the way that I love to play this game is there's a modular board that totally changes up the starting position of the factions. There's 9 factions after you add all the expansions. There's a huge variety of encounter cards. that come in with some expansions and promos and things like that. Factory cards, the additional factions that come into play from some of the expansions are drastically different. And holy cow, does this game get to be a fun puzzle for me. I love a great Euro game where you're figuring out your own puzzle. And this game has this, but it's also got the tension of watching other people build up and knowing when they're going to get to the factory before you, or knowing when you've got to leave 2 mechs on a space, because if you don't, they're going to come in there and knock you out and get that combat star. And just the tension about that. This game it builds to a great crescendo, I think, every time. And it doesn't go too long. It ends fairly rapidly. Turns go fairly rapidly, but they're usually fun decisions. So yeah, Scythe has just gone up for me after I'm probably 70 plays into it at this point. And I don't play it as frequently as I used to, but every time I play it, I love it. I introduced to one of my local newer game groups around here recently, and they loved it. And even my wife joined into it for a play with us, and she loved it. She keeps saying like, yeah, I want to get that game out again. I want to play that again. And that's high praise for something that's kind of, combat focused and thematic with a decent amount of mechanisms going on for her taste. So Scythe has been great for me. My favorite thing about it, it's the production, the artwork by Jakub Brzezowski is just the finishing touch on what is otherwise a pretty interesting Euro, but this world that artwork builds just makes me want to go back to it all the time and turn over that next encounter card and see what's going to happen with it. So yeah, I love Scythe.
Nice.
Number 11.
Great choice.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up this week's list. Next week, we're going to be back with our numbers 1 through 10. If you enjoy the show, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. I also noticed that you can now leave reviews on each episode on Spotify. We had some really nice ones last week. Now, I'm not going to read any reviews this week because these episodes are going a little bit long, but we will be reading some reviews once we get back to our normal format in a couple of weeks. So really appreciate those. Also, to all of the new listeners that have been joining us for these lists, welcome. Hope you're enjoying the show, and we love having you with us. Next week, we get into the best games of all time, and maybe there'll be some surprises. We'll see. Until next week, take care, everybody.
Good night, all.
Bye-bye.